Well, welcome everybody. We got a pretty big crowd tonight, and again, you can check out the other morning watches, the Warrior Watches, um, on our YouTube channel. So we've got these kind of posted up from the last couple weeks. We've been doing this every week, Sam. So kind of to fill you in, we're just trying to keep in touch with all the people within the program and the Warriors involved, because everyone's been pretty isolated, and trying to keep people excited about sailing. And what better way than from the network that Warrior Sailing has through all of our crazy characters and people that we have brought together over the past couple years. So there's people on this list of like highlights of how can we best continue the network and the family we built at Warrior Sailing to introduce people who might have a different road into sailing, just like the Warriors have come in a different road. Maybe didn't grow up sailing dinghies and get through that way, but there's a lot of different ways that you can participate and be a part of the community. So we thought we'd highlight you because you've got a unique story and a unique way of being involved and being in a bass drum of a carbon boat going around the world. There are different ways to get there for sure. So we've highlighted the like turning of the tools and the people that sail them, the people that own them, and now we're going to highlight a different aspect, which is the onboard reporting and sailing. So Sam Greenfield, thank you very much for taking the time to spend an hour or so with us.
Thanks for having me, Ben, and it's awesome to see all these faces. I was telling Ben earlier, I've never done a Zoom chat, so this is pretty wild. But it's always great to get together with the Warriors, whether it's, at an event, or I guess as we're doing it now on the computers, but whatever gets people stoked about getting back on the water. And yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, cool. Well, we're always into the stories outside of sailing, and so I usually start these, and it usually catches people by surprise. But we talk a little bit about the people, before you actually got into sailing. Where are you from?
I'm from a place called Noink, Connecticut. It sounds a lot like cartoon special effects, Noink, but maybe if you've heard of New London, Connecticut, we've got a big sub base that's just around the corner in Groton, electric boat. So it's a town with a big military history. Actually, my mom works for EB, purchasing stuff for submarines. That's about the closest, and that's the closest we get to being in the military. Her husband was a master chief of boat guy, but I don't know if anybody's friendly with the Navy people here, but yeah, so I'm from Noink, which is this kind of like sleepy little town around the corner near Mystic in New London. And it's kind of unique place in that, some towns have baseball and football as their hometown sport. And we had like sailing programs, which is the craziest thing. 20 years ago, you didn't have to belong to a yacht club. You could basically grow up in one of these communities and guarantee that one of your neighbors belonged to one of these organizations, and they could sponsor kids to go and do it as summer programs. And so I'd never belonged to a yacht club, but we got the chance, my brother and I, to go and do these summer camps, and that was what we looked forward to all year, was just school ending and going to do these little optimist training things. And so as Ben was saying, there are a lot of roads to get into it, and I was one of those kids who was really lucky to have a chance to do it when I was young. But yeah, there's a lot of other ways to get into it, but long story short, Noink, Connecticut, that's where I'm from.
Nice. And that led you, so you kind of grew up there, you grew up doing some sailing. Did you play any other sports?
Yeah, I suck at sports. I mean, I always joke, there's a reason I tried to get into sailing. It's because I couldn't catch or throw it to save my life. But I did like some running and I went to a high school that was away from the water, and I thought that like rowing would be a good substitute, and it wasn't. It's awful. It's really painful. But basically always wanted to be sailing, or hoped I'd be sailing, and would do whatever I could to get back to the water, at least in the summertime, because we're seasonal. It's nice here from like May to October, and then it gets really cold. So we're not like down south year round.
Yeah.
Sailors, but yeah.
And so, and it kind of leads into where, the intersection of where we met, and we'll go through that. It's always, people always ask me these kind of interesting, like, how did you meet them, but one of the questions that's always up is like, so when did our paths cross? But you were at NYU, right? Is that,
yeah, so that... I went, it's like it's a bit of a story, but yeah, I went to NYU and New York University and ended up dropping out basically the first day of my senior year and coming home and not really having a game plan. But yeah, that was probably pretty shortly before I met you. But I'll just bridge the gap. What got me from leaving school to meeting Ben and the future leader of the Warriors. But basically, I left school, was back home here in southeastern Connecticut, and went to work at needed to make some money. So I went to go work at a local shipyard in Stonington for a guy named Clay Burkhalter. He's this really amazing local sailor who's done some wild things. He was, I think, one of the first Americans to do the mini transat, and he may have placed top 5 or something. I hope he doesn't watch this if I'm misquoting that, but really an amazing guy. And I knew that he had access to all these great boats he would deliver boats down south into the Caribbean. So long story short, I went and begged him to let me go work for him. And he did. And I did, vacuuming fiberglass dust and whatever he asked me to do. And every morning we'd show up and we'd go and get a coffee in the back of this restaurant. And in the hallway, there were always these very cool sailing photos in it. And I'd always been into photography. I'd never really been focused at it or channeled it. When I was younger, I'd done like a photo course at camp, I guess, like any kid does. But I saw these really amazing photos, and I went to go look at who had done them, and they were from this local photographer named Amory Ross, who was just from a town over in Newport, Rhode Island. And I kind of just put him on my radar and saw within a very short period of time that he was doing the Volvo Ocean race as an onboard reporter. And I just thought, wow, like these images are amazing. This is the stuff I love. Who is this guy? How did he get to do it? And that's kind of where the seed was planted in the back of my head that, you didn't have to be an amazing racer to get on a Volvo Ocean race. You could be the person that documents it. And I was never a good racer doing the junior programs. I was a kid that wanted to fuck around and like create autopilot systems or like bring a cooler out or a shower radio or just have fun and enjoy being on the water. But I was never good at racing, and so there's always a chance. But long story short, I'm kind of forgetting where I'm at here. But basically, I figured out that this race existed, and let's fast forward a couple of years. I ended up deciding that it was either going to be, go do the thing that your parents are all asking you to do, which is go do like a grad school situation, or make a goal to get on this race and just get serious about it. And that Volvo had the Volvo with the Puma, the second Puma go around had just ended, which was, help me with the dates here, Ben.
I don't know what dates it is, but we own that.
12, 13. It was a 12-13 race, or 11-12, I think. I hope that Volvo's not watching this because that's not good history, but basically like 11-12 around then it just ended. Yeah, one of those. It just ended, and it was a set period of time, 3 years until the race was going to start. So I said, I'm going to give myself a year to learn all of this camera equipment and trying to figure out however I can get to this race. And so I met Ben during that first year of trying to figure out how to learn camera equipment. I had no experience, didn't know what I was doing, didn't know how I was going to get there, but I knew I had to be able to get on these boats and take really amazing stills. I had to be able to shoot video, and not just to shoot video, but tell a story with it. I had to write, and then obviously survive on the boats. And I didn't know anything else. There's so much more to learn, but I just kind of threw myself like head through the glass at it. And there was a local sailor, Michael Hennessy, who was on last week's chat, right?
Yeah, last week. Yep.
Last week's chat, Mike Hennessy. And I think I saw him at like a local bar, and I told him what I wanted to do. And he was like, contact these people at this thing called the Atlantic Cup, which was a class 40 regatta that was about to kick off in a month's time. And basically hit him up and said, can I come and volunteer? And I went down, and that's where I met Ben and Tim and all them, and started learning all of the hard lessons about what you don't do to get to to be a professional. Story short.
Yeah, we'll teach you that. That's probably what we're best at. But yeah, I remember that time because you came down there. So Tim and I, like, for those of you, I mean, don't really know, Tim and I were offered a boat from the Sailing Foundation from Ralph, who now, you know, that's the parent company and bigger organization that helps fund Warrior Sailing and keep the whole thing going. And Ralphie gave us a Class 40 to race in the Atlantic Cup because our friends were running this thing, and we were trying to get as much promotion and as much kind of word out there that we were needing money for donations and we were needed a campaign. And really what we needed was an onboard reporter, where everyone else, they didn't want to take somebody for the extra weight. And we were trying really hard to find somebody, but we just couldn't afford anybody. And here we go. Our universe kind of like collides, because there's Sam with a camera and some sailing gear on the dock at the Atlantic Cup in Charleston. And it was like, hey man, you want to go for a ride?
Yeah, it was a great event. It was really cool. There was so many Class 40s, and it was a great opportunity to be on the boats and just kind of figure out, you know, what it's like to shoot on a yacht in confined spaces with total strangers. And that's just where we got thrown headfirst into it. But yeah, it was a fun time. I got to add in, I want to stress though, if there's anybody who's actually interested in media, like that whole year I used to teach myself about all the skills necessary to get to a Volvo. They didn't all involve sailing. The adventure I went on before that Atlantic Cup just a month earlier was I had a friend who had a 1986 Bluebird prison bus, which he bought off eBay for like $1,600. It had 2.1 million miles on it. And I just decided, like, the way I'm going to get started is I'm going to make this amazing documentary about bands. So I need a bus, and we're going to get this bus together, and we're going to get some bands together. We're going to drive them to South by Southwest. And I put this trip together with some bands I didn't know out of Boston, and we got the bus to work and got down there and back. And, like, you know, basically everybody dropped out last minute, so it was just me, and I was meant to be filming it. Now I had to drive it and film it, so I drove the kids down, and we ran it out of gas on the highway. I had to learn how to do like bleed diesel engines. Got down there, had a great time. It was a really fantastic trip, and we got them back even. And then I proceeded to format the hard drive right after the event and lose all the video footage. Another one of the great mistakes I learned in that year of teaching myself stuff. So I mean, like, just if you have a goal you want to get to, you don't necessarily need to like do it all through that specific industry. There are a lot of ways to teach yourself applicable skills that will translate into where you want to be. Including awesome. Don't delete your hard drives. Yeah.
Don't delete your hard drives.
Rookie move for sure.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we continue, don't we?
Yeah. So yeah, I'll just keep on with this. So basically, Atlantic Cup ended. I ended up leaving the Atlantic Cup. It's very close to the end of it, and I went out to Bermuda, where I joined a tall ship called the Spirit of Bermuda. I ended up doing the same thing I did with the Atlantic Cup, where I said, let me just make videos and come along for the ride for free. They took me on a trip. We sailed from Bermuda to Virginia, and we went from Virginia to Newport, and then back out to Bermuda. And then we did a whole nother voyage where we went to Haiti and back with a group of 14 kids. And we sailed 14 kids down to a commercial port in Haiti that had never seen a yacht, to swap them off and pick up a group of 14 who had flown down and bring them up. And it was just the most surreal adventure. But did that, came back, went home, and ended up, I learned not to delete my hard drive. So I was putting that together. And then I found a photographer in my hometown who was actually a National Geographic photographer, convinced him to let me assist for him. That lasted for about 8 weeks till he got sick of me, but I learned a ton of stuff from him anyway. I went on some cool trips. And by the end of the year, I'd compile all these adventures together, and it was time to start applying for the Volvo Ocean race job, because it was going to be starting in about 2 years, 2 months or something like that. And so I had it in my head, I was going to just send an email and a video of all this cool stuff. And sure enough, the day I was about to click send, they announced this worldwide drive to find onboard reporters. So literally they just said, hey, everybody, now send in your stuff. And I was going to be amongst like every person who wanted this job. So I figured I needed to find a way to set it apart. So I spent another 2 months working on a video where it's still up on YouTube somewhere, but it was just like, it was a YouTube resume directed at the one person I knew at the office who was in charge of the program. And I basically spoke to him in the first 30 seconds, said, here's what I've done. And then played a crash edit of all the stuff from the year, and managed to get, he wrote me back like the next day and set up a call for the next week. And they flew me out the month after to do a 30-day internship. And that's where it all started from.
Wow.
Yeah, so it was kind of
And
crazy.
I
Crazy.
remember that video. It's still like one of my favorites because it's like almost outtake-ish. You know, you're like your video and the creativeness that Sam has is like unparalleled in a lot of different ways that like you almost don't. Sometimes people need so much direction about exactly what you want, but I find it different when I work with you, and we can talk a little bit about that. Like when you came and did the foundation video, and
Oh, yeah.
it was in between gigs, and I was living in Miami, and I said, Sam, I just need a promo video, and I don't know exactly what I want, but I have all the stuff in my head, and I can't talk to you on the phone about it forever. Just fly here, we'll figure out a price, just come here and hang out in Miami, we'll make sure that it's a good time. And just to let your creative, like to tell you the idea and the concept in the bubble of what I want, and then to let Sam figure out the creative side of being on land. And he actually, my dog at the time became the main character of of the video, which if you know if you ever seen the video, it's great.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's amazing that the you know the creative side of that, like what you said, it isn't really all about sailing. I think your videos have been transformative because and just great because you're able to take your creativity first and then apply it to what's happening and the people and the stories. So it's
Thanks,
awesome.
man. Making me blush.
Yeah. Oh no. I mean, it's a you know it's a skill, and
That's
as
very kind of you.
someone who's a director of a program where we've got a lot of things going on, and I want to tell the story, and I want people to experience the things that we're experiencing at the Warrior events, and I don't want it to be fake, and I want it to be real, and I just want it to be true, and it's like come capture everything. It's like,
Yeah,
well,
no,
that's a
that was
lot
a
of
fun time.
footage, and that's a lot of stuff. So let's get to your Volvo Ocean race
Yeah, let's get to the good stuff.
basic
What do people want to
experience.
know?
Well, so basically, you're on as an onboard reporter. You get on the boat, you're not allowed to sail it, and you have to live your life. I mean, it sounds like this dramatic, awesome thing. I mean, so does sailing, but at the end of the day, it pretty much sucks a lot of the time. I mean, 90% of the time, you're either going upwind or it's scary and you're going downwind, and then there's never, it's either wet and cold or it's dry and hot. Like, or, you know, like, what's your life like in a daily life of an onboard reporter in the Volvo Ocean race? Like,
Yeah,
what is
that's
it?
such a great question because there is no day that is the same. There's no team that's the same. There's 1,000 different combinations of what your experience can be like in that race. And I was really fortunate that I've gotten to do 2 of them so far. In the first one, I was assigned to this one specific Chinese team, Chinese-French team. And that was just like that was the first time I got to do it. It was a dream experience. I didn't think I was going to get to do it. They called me in halfway through the race to fill in for that onboard reporter, Yan Ryu, who's a total legend. And basically what you learn from that is the more you can make it kind of like a family dynamic, which I imagine a lot of people who, you know, anybody here who's served and who's been in a unit or gone overseas and is part of kind of like a tribe can understand. Like the more tight knit your group is, it doesn't matter what you're going through, it can be fantastic, even if it's horrible. And so to answer your question, yeah, there are days that are awful and miserable, and there are days that are great. But I mean, as I said, I've done 2 of these, and the biggest lesson I got out of it was you really need to learn to kind of control your mindset and control your emotions and find comfort in being uncomfortable, and just sort of, even if it's an awful shit day, or even if maybe you've rubbed somebody the wrong way or they've rubbed you the wrong way, or things aren't just meshing, you have to find a way to kind of appreciate that you get this incredible opportunity to be there. And I mean, I look back on my second race where I got to do basically a full lap of the planet, and God, I wish I could go back on countless occasions and apply that same advice that I figured out halfway through the race or something like that. But it just pushes you and everybody around you to your absolute extreme, because you are, like Ben explained, I don't know how many people here follow the Volvo Ocean race, but for the last 2 editions, it's been in something called the Volvo Ocean 65, which is this kind of carbon fiber school bus. You got, I think 9 to 11 people on board. It's 65 feet, but realistically only, you know, half of that is usable space where you're habitating, and then half the people are on deck, or 4 people on deck and 4 people down below, and then you're floating. And the navigators floating, but you just basically get thrown into this little microcosm, and it depends on the kind of the culture that that team has set up and the leadership and the culture that they've created will really define what the experience is like, and also how you as this outsider coming in approach that and work with that or don't work with that. That defines your experience. I've had successes and I've had total failures meshing with teams, and to double back on that, the first one I did, I was part of that team. I knew them from the beginning. They were comfortable with me from the beginning, and it made it a lot easier because you kind of define what the success is going to look like, whether that's making a meal each day or cleaning up, or you know, what are you going to do that so that if somebody's having a bad day and they look at you, they're not going to get pissed off because you're this outsider on board. I say that because on the second race I did, Volvo took a very different approach where the race hired all of the onboard reporters, and we were essentially not like free agents, where we would basically be thrown into a boat at a moment's notice. You might get a few days notice before you go offshore with the team, and you know, you don't necessarily always have the time to put the relationships together, and so my preference, I think, is always the more time you can spend getting to know a group of people and understanding how that tribe works and what their rules are and what their definitions of success are, then the easier it's going to be for you to kind of integrate and make the experience work.
Sam,
Right. And so,
it's,
and that's
sorry.
a really interesting.
Yeah, Katrina, what's up?
No, I just wanted to ask you a question. Which boat were you on in the second round then?
In the second round, I was on a lot of boats.
Oh, so
I was
you got to move around.
Well, we didn't have a choice in the matter. We were essentially hired by the race and told where we would be, and depending on what was working on other boats and what was working with you in that boat, you would essentially never know what team you were on until you know, it could be a few days before the leg began.
Sure.
So I started out the race with Turn the Tide on Plastic, which was the UNEP Di Cafari's yacht, which had a really incredible young crew that was half male, half female. And after that, I did a leg with Charlie Enright and Mark Towell on Bestest 11th Hour Racing. After that, I ended up on, let's see, we got sail with them to Africa, Australia. I'm trying to remember where we were, Australia. And then I got on Axon Noble for the leg from Australia to Hong Kong. So let me just go through the legs here. The first, I didn't make the first leg from Spain to Portugal. I had a friend who was very sick. Actually an army captain who had just gotten melanoma. So I went to Walter Reed, hung out with him, came back, started the race in Lisbon, got on with Turn the Tide on Plastic. We sailed to Cape Town, South Africa. From Cape Town, I did Charlie and Mark to Australia. From Australia up to Hong Kong, I was on Axon Noble. Took the next leg off because we were going back up and down the Pacific. I didn't want to do the same thing twice. And we got to, that put me in New Zealand for the big Southern Ocean leg, which I did again with Di Cafari and Turn the Tide on Plastic. Went around Cape Horn with that team. We almost lost our rig right after Cape Horn. It was an absolutely harrowing experience, but unforgettable, and a really great group of people. From there, we got to Brazil. And at that point, as you can see, I had been floating around with a number of different teams, and I was pretty keen to not be doing that. So basically, one way or another, it worked out with Team Brunel, which was Bauer Becking and an incredible cast of really just top-notch sailors, Kyle Langford, Peter Burling, and a handful of others who I'll come back to if we want to talk about some of the cool personalities that you meet. And basically was able to finish off the race with them. So we did from Brazil to Newport, Newport to Cardiff, Cardiff to Gothenburg, and Gothenburg to the finish, all on Brunel, and really got to become a part of that team, which was just, it mirrored the first experience I'd had in that first Volvo with Dongfeng. It was so rewarding to get to see that and to shoot that and to work with that kind of a cohesive unit.
The reason I'm asking is because I work for Volvo, so I've been privy to a lot of these races, etc.
Oh,
very
cool.
privileged to even get to steer one of the boats in an inshore race. But
wow, that's awesome.
The boat you mentioned lost. I know that, I'm pretty sure that the media person got an award for one of those races. And that's why I wanted to ask you, because it must be so difficult to do a good job and at the same time not being in the way. Because I know when people are super focused, they can get very irritated that someone who's not doing a specific job is actually in their way. And then at the same time, get to a level where you capture that, the extreme energy, the frustration, the heroism, and all of that in such a way that we just cry when we saw these movies. It's like, you know, it is such a feat in itself, but when you see it packaged the way you do it, it is very cool. And I was teary-eyed when I watched that.
It's always really rewarding when somebody actually knows what the race is, and let alone watch some of the videos and kind of was able to relate to the experience that everybody goes through, because it is very niche and it is very extreme. They love to use that buzzword, and they probably use it to death, but it is accurate. It is an extreme experience, and there are a whole lot of emotions involved. And if we can capture just a fraction of them, it's pretty awesome to get to share that with everybody and to share that experience on a whole, which is just such a unique opportunity.
Yeah, and I'm sure that you have, that's a very, very tight balance, and it's like a dance, right, between sharing the true raw emotions of the team and the people when things go wrong, and you're supposed to be capturing that. You're kind of caught in the middle of like wanting to get the action, but you need to be respectful of the people. I'm sure that those sort of things, you know, like it's like you want to put a camera. What we found, and it's something we see in warrior sailing, is like it is a very sensitive situation to be in, that you want to tell the story and the impact and what we have going on, because it's important for us to share with people that support. But at the same time, which is one of the reasons why we don't do a lot of publicity and that sort of thing at basic camps, because it's the first time people meet us, and we want to make sure that that isn't really part of it, isn't an advertising. Right. But it is a tough balance. I think it's a hard thing for you to balance when you're on those teams, is it not?
It sure is. And this is one of the biggest lessons that I think I've taken out of these two races I've done. There's so many different ways to answer this, and obviously there are tons of, let me think about this one. Without a doubt, the hardest part is being able to go into one of these environments or one of these teams and put a camera in someone's face and be comfortable, which is why I go back to always saying that the more time you can spend with a team, or that you can integrate into one of these units, the better. That said, I've had, you know, experiences where I've been in the wrong and I've really gone into a situation incorrectly and hindered my ability to get content. And then I've, you know, figured out what's wrong and gone back and addressed what those issues were, and with another group said, okay, well, what would define success here? And long story short, it's not as bad as you think it is with professional sailors, whether it's in the Volvo or the America's Cup or Sail GP. They all know now that media and storytelling is essential to the bottom line, which is sponsorships and essentially paying for the race to happen and paying for their checks. So while maybe in the past 10 years ago, it would have been a situation where, you know, it wasn't a very welcome thing, I'd say it's very normal now, where professional sailors know that media is a part of the story and a part of the bottom line. And without it, there is no race, and there are no sponsors, and there's no amazing job for them to go do. There's no race that exists anymore where you don't see it documented. So in that vein, it's appreciated. And the most professional crews that I've gotten the opportunity to work with are always the easiest ones to shoot with as well. Now, that being said, also probably when I've been my best version, when I can be the most professional, it's also made it the easiest. So you gotta definitely just figure out the specific dynamics of each group, what makes them tick, what they're going to appreciate, what they're not going to like, when's the right moment, when is not the right moment. And yeah, there's no one formula that works for every boat. You just kind of have to hash it out each time you get on one of these crews and feel it out. But I think with each of those experiences, you get a bit better and you can grow a bit from it.
And so from the Volvo Ocean race and like moving on, then your next, I mean, did you anticipate the call from the America's Cup? Was that the next thing you pursued, or was it just kind of along the line? Like,
No, not at all. I mean, the crazy thing is that I worked like mad to get into that first Volvo, and it was like a total pipe dream come true. And when it finished, it was over. I was pretty excited to have a little bit of downtime, and then I ended up getting a call from um, Bruno Dubois, who had been organizing the French America's Cup Challenge team, and he said, "I want you to come down to." I hope he doesn't hear this, but Bruno had basically given me my first chance on Dongfang, and him along with Mark Turner gave me a chance to start in the whole thing, and we always got along really well. And at the end of it, a few months later, I think it was that fall after the race had ended. Keep in mind the race ends around like June, so a few months later, he calls me up and says, "You want to come down and check out our base? We'd love to talk to you about doing media for the French team." And I was just like over the moon. I couldn't believe that an America's Cup team, even though it was somebody I'd worked with before, was asking me to do this. And literally while I was on the base getting the first tour, I get a call from Oracle Team USA, and
They knew you were in
and
town. Our base.
I don't know what had happened, but long story short, I got the call from them, and it was really tough because I had so much respect and so much enjoyed working with Bruno in that group, but I never had a chance to work with an American flag team before, even if they did have a ton of Australians. But it still was an American sponsor with American sailors flying for the U.S. flag, and it was an opportunity I couldn't give up. So I got transferred out to Bermuda and got to join the team, and I was working with Jimmy Spithill and Tom Slingsby, and on the American side we had Matt Cassidy and Andrew Campbell and Cooper Dressler and well, Louis Sinclair has a U.S. passport. Tom does too, but there were some really amazing, and of course Rum Kirby, the Prince of Newport. How can I forget him? It was just like this awesome cast of American sailors amongst a big international crew, and it was such a professional, well-run operation. It's kind of like one of those once in a lifetime sort of opportunities, and so they brought me out there, and I got to do something which was really the best decision ever. Was I asked Jimmy Spithill if I could, as part of like integrating with the team, if I could train with them in the gym every morning while I was shooting, if I could jump on the weights. I was like a very skinny kid. And he was like, "Yeah, this will be entertaining." So they like encouraged me to come in and do workouts with them and to lift with this America's Cup team and to hang out with them. And then I'd always have the camera and shoot some photos and videos at the end of it. But I got a chance to really integrate with them. And it went so far in that direction that I ended up transitioning from kind of video and storytelling to becoming the head coach's sort of assistant, where I'd go out in the water and they'd see me flying the drone, and they were trying to figure out how to get aerial footage. And when I was there, they had someone from, I think like a Portuguese aerospace engineer trying to figure out this giant gas powered drone. And they saw that we could just throw this thing up. And the next thing I knew, a few months later, they're like, "Don't worry as much about the storytelling stuff. We want you to be flying the drone behind the boat for every single practice." And we started doing the first kind of aerial performance program that had ever existed. And then I'd get to go in the morning and I'd look out my door and I could see if a crane was lifting up at the Artemis base, and you'd run to the base and get on a rib and go at 50 knots down and take spy photos of their foils and send them into the meeting that morning. And it was just such a cool experience. I love it. It was great.
Yeah, and so do you think, I mean, was that, I know you've been working on your drone footage, obviously it had been part of this, but this is after you did the Brunel, was this?
And this is before Brunel, after Dongfang.
Okay.
It was basically between the two. And the drones had started in the first Volvo. They had never been flown before in the race. They'd been attempted, but the ones that had been attempted were kind of like the little cheap mall drones you'll see. And this was back when the Phantom 2, we're jumping back to the first Volvo. This was back when the Phantom 2 was on the market, and it wasn't great, but it was pretty good. And you still had to like screw aerials onto it, and you had to kind of jerry rig like a screen together. And it wasn't like you see now where you take it out of the box and everything works. You had to kind of tinker with it a bit. But basically, when I got the chance to do that first Volvo like on Dongfang, I got 4 days notice, and the first thing I did was I went to the guy who was running, the principal race officer, and I said, "I have this drone, can I bring it on the boat with me?" And he said, "Well, I don't know, let me check." And he said, "Ah, screw it, we'll just change the rules, bring it." So nobody else had one. I brought it out with me, and we were in the middle of the Indian Ocean, I think like halfway through a 24-day leg, and dead calm doldrum, 0 knots of breeze. And that's when I waited to kind of kick it up in the air and fly it out. And like the second it left the deck, all of the sailors, they were all convinced it was going to just fall in the water. And sure enough, it flew, and everybody was like cheering. And we did a little loop around the boat, got some footage. I got it back in. It was like, you have to imagine 0 knots of wind, but your hands are like shaking. You're so nervous about losing it. And we got it in. I sent in the footage, and the people at the headquarters went crazy because nobody had ever seen an off the boat view of a yacht racing in the middle of the ocean. So that kind of was what set things in motion for that America's Cup, and a lot of the other future work was just kind of integrating those into the race.
Nice. Well, I mean, that takes, well, yeah, but you're talking about 2 innovations, Sam. Like, yeah, you were the kid that was squirting everybody with squirt guns at sailing camp, and you didn't care about racing. But then you look at what you've done in the last decade, and it's like bringing the footage from what you get to see offshore, and then helping America's Cup team spy. You know, who would have known that you'd be flying the drones that successfully? And obviously,
Yeah,
it's come tenfold now, right?
It is. It was like a natural evolution. And look, I was just very lucky that I was batting my head through the glass at the time when this technology was available, and I had this opportunity when it was there, and it all came together. But I mean, yeah, so the drones got better, and for the Volvo, the second Volvo I did with Brunel, and it was the most recent one. Basically, they became standard issue for every onboard reporter, and everybody would bring them out. And we went from flying them in, like I had, where it was just 2 knots of breeze, to flying them in the Southern Ocean and 40 knots of wind and pushing it as hard as you can. So it just, the curve just went straight off after that. And now you'll see there's so many incredible operators out there, like Ugo Finella, who's with Matt Frey, the Spanish team. He's like so good with them, and there's just a ton of great talents out there now who are all putting their individual spins on it, and that's how the race always goes. Whether it's photo or video, there's just people who come through and put their shine on it, and that's what makes the race and the media component so great.
Yeah, so we're getting a lot of action over here in the chat box that is like, well, were we gonna be able to see any of this? You didn't think this guy
is there a
was full
chat
of
box?
shit?
How do we get
this?
this?
Is this guy full of shit or what? Where is his video? Show us his video.
Where's this chat box? I want to see a chat box.
There's a chat box. It might just be for the host. So people are sending in kind of questions here. They're just wondering.
Oh, nice.
And I could, if you send me.
Yeah, I'll send you a link now. I got you one. All right, where do we go? Go to.
Actually, if you at the bottom there, do you see? Can you put the highlight down where the videos? Do you see a chat box there? It says chat on Zoom.
Hold on a second. I'm just typing it in right now.
Okay.
Because I can't multitask, so I'm telling you. All right, here it is. I've got the link. Nice. All right, so what do we do here? Where did y'all go?
If you put the screen share on, you can just share your screen if you'd like to be that brave.
All right, let me see if I can figure out where this chat is. Cancel. Uh-oh, have I done something bad here? I
don't think so. I don't think you
I can hear you.
I
can hear you guys. I can hear you guys, but I'm trying to find the chat right now. I think I've kind of. Oh, this is pretty low tech of me. You there?
Yeah, I can still hear you, and we can still see you. So it's just a matter of yeah. I don't know what view you've got it going on, but you know.
What have I done?
I don't know. What do you look up?
All right, if you just type in AIRVUZ Greenfield drone, that'll be the video. But where the hell did the chat go? Ben, help me.
Ben, this is Miguel.
I
just posted his YouTube web channel on the chat.
Oh God, don't use that.
That's what I was afraid of. Sam Greenfield. What do I look up? Sam Greenfield.
Oh, here it is. I'm back in the thing. All right, I got you. Oh, chat, here it is. All right, there's the link. Cool.
Okay.
So that's a video that, if you guys click on that link, that was captured during the 24-hour record sail on Team Brunel in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. And that is what I would say was the highlight day of my entire Volvo experience. You may have seen this video. It's the one where I basically film myself launching it, and then you can see, here we go, nice.
All right. So now
right,
you
yeah,
can
let's do it.
narrate. Now you're getting the guy that actually did the video. So the biggest thing is
glad
whether or
you
not
guys
my
know how to use
internet
this.
can handle this. Screen.
Okay, so it might need to buffer. All right, so this is a good view on the inside of a Volvo 65. You can see it's all carbon fiber. There's little pockets on the back. That's where we store all this stuff. This is what it looks like outside on a nice windy day. Keep in mind, these were record-breaking conditions where the 65 fleet was going faster than they'd ever gone before. So we were hitting, I think, close to 600-mile days or something like that. So I thought it'd be a good time to show what it's like to fly the drone. So I figured probably not going to get this thing back. Hey, Ben, can you scroll up a little bit on the video?
What's that?
Just scroll up so that it's cutting off the front, the top of it.
Like that? Hang
There
on,
you
I
go.
can
Yeah,
pause
perfect. Nice. No, that's good. That's good. All right. That's Abby Ayler. She's like one of the most impressive sailors in the entire industry. She's super badass. All right. So here's the launch. You got to watch the video. It's a bit smoother, but so yeah, and that's what a boat looks like in the middle of the North Atlantic, steaming along at 30 knots. So this is just a quick little glimpse, and I highly recommend you go check out this video on that link, and you'll be able to hear the audio and what it sounds like and all of that. But basically, what I want to do is fast forward through to the end of it, because what's happening here is we're flying in the fog, we're flying in the it's misting, the drone is getting covered in all kinds of fog and water, and basically I'm sitting inside of that hatch. I haven't gotten wet at all during this shoot, which is what I'm most proud of here. And we are cruising along, and I'm just chasing it, but I'm also seeing in the screen that like moisture is building up on it. I know that it's getting wet and that it could basically just fall out of the sky at like any second. So I don't know how long it is until the it should come down pretty soon. So basically I'm sitting in the boat trying to figure out how we're going to retrieve this thing, and in my mind I figured the drone's dead anyway, we just have to get it back. So I told the guy who was driving, his name is Kyle Langford, I said, I'm just going to crash this straight into the cockpit, and when you see it, just try and pick it up. But keep in mind, like if you hear the audio, it's like roaring loud, you can't hear anything. So I was like yelling, I'm gonna fall. And then all I heard him from back there is like, no, it's good, I'll get it. So I thought he was saying he wanted to catch it while he was driving, so I flew it up next to him, and he catches it, which was very lucky. And he passes it off to Pete Burling, who runs it to me. And in a sec, you'll see me dry. I've got my pajama bottoms on, drone retrieved. So that's how I got the footage. I was very happy. Yeah, that's how you fly a drone in the ocean and not get wet. But the drone itself, it's just such a testament to the technology now. It's the most rock steady. You can, as long as you can get it up in the air, it'll fly in any wind. It might just get blown away, but it's not going to tumble over or anything. So you can do whatever you can imagine with them, pretty much. And then the hard part's just getting it back.
Yeah. Dude, even that footage now is just like, it's incredible because it's just, no one has ever seen that before. It's hard to explain, right? Like it's hard to explain that you're getting really wet and then that it's really rough and that it sucks and that it's pretty fast. And then you see it from off the boat and you're like, what is going on? What are these people doing?
The best way to describe what it's like being in those conditions, those specific conditions, are, imagine if your bathroom, your toilet was 15 feet down the hallway, but your house was shaking so much up and down, back and forth, that it took you 30 minutes to get in, take your wet clothes off, and safely navigate yourself to where you need to pee, and like dispose of it, get back, get yourself dressed. It is literally every single moment when you're in conditions like that has to be so thought out, and you're so like attuned to your surroundings, which is one of the most incredible experiences. But in the same vein, you'll just I mean, like, I know I personally just stopped drinking water because I was like, I just don't want to go pee. It's such a pain in the ass to go use this thing. That's not an option for like an athlete, for like a person shooting the media. Maybe it's not healthy. Definitely wasn't healthy, but everything is tough. And you want to go up on deck, you want to get your camera ready. Look at your watch. You're like a half hour. It's going to take me a half hour to get out the door. So it's just, everything is hard. That's why when you have these really nice light wind, dry days where you can kind of float around in your bare feet and run up on the deck and have chats, it's so much fun because it's just, you're not worrying about literally like breaking your neck or something like that.
Yeah, I think it's one of the things that people learn pretty quickly, Sam, when they're on board for a long time. It isn't necessarily the sailing. It's everything else. It's just to walk around. I mean, it's just tiring. Like, you just get exhausted by just balancing with your boat at 35, 40 degrees. And those boats in particular are just like really uncomfortable.
For sure.
It's just not normal to do that. But that footage is awesome. And the award, you got like a drone award, or what was you won something?
That video was for like the New York Drone Film Festival, which I just kind of entered on a whim. But yeah, it won a category for something, which was cool. But the Volvo has some awards and stuff like that. But I mean, like, the award, this is going to sound super cheesy. The award's getting to go do the damn race and getting to be out there. That's the cool part. And the more you have to realize that. But I think this is a good time to kind of open it up to, like, if anybody has questions or is anything else they want to know about or hear me ramble about them, let me know.
Definitely. There's also the chat box is open if you guys had other questions. I did want to get into a little bit about your experience with Warrior Sailing, because it is a Warrior Sailing situation here. So last year, it's really hard to get Sam because he's always committed, because he's not, very sought after, and it's hard to get him to have the time to be able to come do paid gigs, let alone come to hang out with us Warriors and come check out what we have going on. But for 2 years, he's been saying, no, I'm coming. We're going to figure it out. And we finally got the chance that our match, our schedules were able to work out. And you came to Charleston Race Week last year. So
yeah, that was awesome. That was so much fun.
What was that experience, and what has that meant to you, and what was like that? What'd you take away from that?
Oh man, there's so much. That's so much to unpack there. But I mean, I showed up in Charleston, and we all met up at a little local club where everybody had gathered for dinner, and everybody went around the room and introduced themselves and got to chat and hang out a little bit. And you just got a sense of the group. And it was such a friendly, fun, kind group of people who were so excited to come and be doing something together. And it was just, you get such a great vibe from that off the bat. And then over the next, I think 2 or 3 days, we'd go out, and each day we'd go sailing with a different boat, different group of people. And there were no bad rides. There were different kinds of boats. There were different programs going on, but it didn't really seem like anybody was having it's such an awesome thing that you guys do, putting these experiences together and these opportunities together. But there were groups of people who were out more experienced. They were out racing on the J22s and fully commanding their ship amongst, a fleet against other people. And then there were people who had never gotten to go sailing before, and they were on like a big round the world cruising catamaran, basically eating amazing lunches with really cool people and just having awesome conversations. And you'd have somebody was maybe making a snack in the kitchen, and someone's learning how to fly a spinnaker on the bow. And the coolest part of that was with Gabe. I remember the guy who was running this, do you remember his name? He had the family with that amazing cruising catamaran.
Oh, yeah, I'll remember it in this minute. But
sorry to put you on the spot like that. But either way, the people who donate their boats and their resources to Warrior Sailing are total bosses. They're such great people. And the best example of this is the family who own this. I mean, this is an incredible boat. This is a 50-foot. You can go anywhere you dream of it. And they decided they were going to open it up to this group of warriors.
You were on Teddy's boat, right?
Nope. It's a different story. This is a different situation.
Yeah, this was No Gal is the name of the boat.
This is No Gal, and we were on No Gal, and basically the owner said to Gabe, he was like, "You want to drive this thing off the dock?" And Gabe was like, "What?" Keep in mind, Gabe's got one arm, You know, Gabe, and that's never slowed him down, but basically there's no presumptions, there was no negativity, there was no biases. He was just like, hey man, my boat is your boat, by the way, do you want to drive this $1 million beauty off the dock? And then he took him out, let him steer it around, let everybody steer. And as we were coming back in at the end of the day, he's like, all right, you want to dock it now? Like full on current, wind. And he just sat there talking, and Gabe with his good arm, like brought the boat in and did a beautiful job of it. And it was the coolest thing I've ever seen. I think that was for me the moment that was just like, this is what warrior sailing is about, is like come out, go sailing, have a great experience, meet great people, and just get to be around other people who are kind of enjoying that opportunity, maybe for the first time, maybe for the 20th time, but it doesn't really matter.
Yeah. And it's Frank Middleton is the name of the guy that owned No Gal, and his family.
Frank Middleton, total boss, really cool guy.
Yeah. And it was just really, really neat to see the opportunities and the people that, you know, have provided for guys and gals to get out on the water. I just love, that's one of my favorite things, Sam, is that you get to come out, bring professionals and people that don't even know you. They're like, oh, is that crazy guy flying a drone off the back of the boat? They don't even know that you were in the Southern Ocean flying it, or that you were out in Bermuda doing the America's Cup. So
Yeah,
thank you very much for it. I know, but it's pretty cool to have people involved.
But I'm posting up a video now for you guys on the chat, and that's where you can watch Gabe dock in the boat. That was one of the videos we made. I just put it in the chat. Wait,
and so there's a couple questions.
Sorry, I privately sent it to Jim Meyer. Sorry about that, Jim. Okay, now it's sent to everybody.
How many cameras have you lost in your life?
Everybody always wants to ask this question. I've lost a lot of cameras. I mean, I've lost a good number of drones. I think it's probably something maybe around 10 or so drones. I've got to do, I was thinking, now that there's so much downtime, I'll put together a compilation of like, I have actually a lot of documented examples of drones being destroyed. I've lost them off the, hey, I'll just tell you all the cool places. The best part about this job is the places you travel. I've lost a drone off the coast of New Zealand. I've lost a drone off the cliffs of Portugal. I've lost a drone off in the English Channel. I've gotten to lose one and destroyed one in the Southern Ocean. I've gotten to destroy them in Bermuda. I flew one underneath a boat in San Francisco and sunk it to the bottom of the bay with a full card of footage. I've crashed them all around the world. And I try to not be shy about that. And a lot of the people are uncomfortable about, admitting that. I think, you got to embrace your fuck ups. So I've lost a lot of drones, and I try to lose less now. And it all comes with the territory, but nothing risked, nothing gained.
So Miggs was wondering what a place and resource to get better at drone flight. Like what have you done, or is it like sailing time on the water? Like what makes you a better drone pilot? Is there something people can do, or a resource?
Good question. Yeah. It's a great question. And I would say when you're starting out, it's just going into a field and learning basic spatial awareness, and there's little things like learning how to fly in figure eight, or learning how to make the drone go up and away and then back and to you. And then you create little movements, and you learn how to create kind of stick awareness and understand what moves it. And then when you think you've gotten good, go out and take a car into like a field or like a road in the middle of nowhere. I have to stress, this is completely illegal. You're not allowed to do this. But if you were to do this hypothetically, find something that's moving but a bit more forgiving, and practice, releasing and catching. But there are certain settings that you need to enable. I don't know if anybody here has a drone or is actually flying it. There's a thing called ADI
what
mode.
kind of drone do you have? DJI Mini. DJI Mini.
DJI Mini. Those ones don't have. There's a mode. There's GPS mode, sport mode, and ADI mode. And we always use this thing called ADI mode because what it does is it disables all of the GPS and the sensors. I know it sounds counterintuitive, but the more that stuff is on, the more it wants to control the drone. So if you imagine, this is your drone and you're going forward, and then you take your hands off the stick, it'll just stop and brake. But if ADI mode's on, you hit stop, it'll just keep drifting. Imagine like a hockey puck on the ice. So you learn how to fly the drone as though it's like a hockey puck on the ice, or like a spaceship, but it has a little thruster input so that you can make nice movements. But my suggestion would be to there's lots of great resources like on YouTube. I would literally just Google on YouTube how to do your specific question, and it's all there. And then if you have anything specific, you can always reach out to me, and I'll happily ping you back what I think will help.
Cool. Awesome. It's all about
And
that network.
yeah, it is all about that network. And literally want to stress, if anybody has any questions or things like that, feel free to shoot it over. And the best part about warrior sailing is that the people that do get involved, they really love it, and they love getting to meet you guys and hearing your stories, and we all appreciate everything that you guys have done for the country. So if we can answer some questions about sailing or whatever it is that you're interested in, I mean, it's a two-way street. We appreciate it too.
Yeah, I can pass those along. So Sam, we're getting down to about 3 minutes left, and I always have a couple questions that I ask at the end to each person. And you've answered some of them in some ways, but I think it gives you a chance to kind of round it out. And then we
All right,
will,
go for
and can, if you know, there'll be people that can stick on after if they want to ask some questions. So we always talk about the family and the network and what it means to get into sailing, but everyone has their own way in. But what would be your advice for anyone that wants to start sailing and to continue sailing if you had entered as like warrior sailing, maybe as an adult, maybe not a kid, but what's your advice for people getting in? Like, how do you get out and go sailing?
Yeah, I think you just don't be afraid to ask for what you want. People, if you live in a place that has a lake or has a sailing club or has any kind of an organized racing thing, don't be shy. I know that it's really tough to approach a stranger and introduce yourself and say, hey, can I get a chance? But people are always looking for crew. And I know that the whole COVID thing has messed it up, but it'll come back to normal at some point. And the biggest thing is just to understand that it is a community, and the whole thing is based around not only sailing and racing, but the social side of it. So when you go through the warrior sailing program and you get the basic skill set and you learn how to get yourself around a boat without getting hurt, and how to be, just to be there and not be in the way, then you're qualified to be like a crew on a Wednesday night race. So you should go find a local club, whether it's a yacht club or a community sailing club, and just say, hey, where can I become rail meet? Where can I just jump on a boat and get involved? And from there you'll learn and you'll meet great people. It's just, don't be shy. Like everybody, there are people out there who are always looking for people to come race with them.
Awesome.
And I think through Ben, and if you know where you are, we can also kind of help you zero in on good places to go find those based on where you live.
Awesome.
Some helpful tips.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's a common theme, get out there and put yourself out there, which is one of the most difficult things to do for some people. So makes sense. Worst offshore weather situation.
Worst offshore weather. The worst is always upwind. And heavy wind, because when you're going upwind, the boats just slam down on the waves, and that's when people get hurt. That's when things break. So I think for me, that was God, you know what? I'm trying to remember, but I think like anytime it's upwind and I throw up, that's always the worst.
Yeah. And everybody's susceptible to seasickness, right?
Yeah, pretty much. But it's when you're downwind, it can be really windy, but it can be a lot of fun. But the upwind is painful.
Nice. So in your limited time, and a lot of this is like based for people that have coached directly with our program at basic camps, but what is something you've learned about the veteran population while you were hanging out with the warriors that you didn't know before? Was there anything that came out of that time that you spent with the warriors?
Yeah, quite a lot. I mean, for me, I didn't realize how difficult it is for veterans and people coming out of the military to kind of find that like idea of a tribe or a team or cohesive unit that they had while they were in service once they're out. And I think, I learned a lot about, suicide rates with veterans and the really sad, grim reality of it. That sets in for a lot of people when they don't have either a support network or they don't have something to kind of keep them busy and keep their time, have something to look forward to, which is why, in my opinion, warrior sailing is so important. People have something that they can look forward to and also kind of have a bit of a roadmap and like a practice block to kind of figure out how I myself to more strangers and ask them to take me out into more unfamiliar situations. It's, if you kind of like look at sailing as a vehicle, it can take.
Well, did we lose him? He looks like he's frozen. I think we might have lost him. Can other people hear me? Oh, there you go.
Great.
Sam. Now? Were you just
Okay, I'm back.
downloading footage? There, you're back. Cool. Sorry, I
Okay.
just kind of cut out a little bit. You were just talking about the community and getting out there and meeting people. It was awesome.
Yeah, what I was trying to say is if you've been in the military, you know what it's like to be uncomfortable. You know how to rally in uncomfortable situations. So I think what I learned coming through warrior sailing was how difficult it is to leave that service life and to leave that idea of being with the tribe and to find a new sense of community. So I hope that that's something that warrior sailing can provide. And I hope that people who really take on the warrior sailing program are able to identify that they can kind of look at it in a very similar way that they did their time in service, and that they can challenge themselves with new skills, meet strangers, go out, learn new skill sets, and see how far it takes them, because this can literally take you anywhere.
Yeah, I agree. That's awesome. That's something I've learned too. And the last one is, what do you think sailors and warriors, how do you think they're alike?
I think they all like a good time.
Yeah.
I think they're all pretty fearless. And I think that they all bring something unique to the table. Each person I've met has a unique experience in the military or outside, whether it's their experience serving or coming out and starting a business or pushing themselves to new heights after their time. And I think it's just such an awesome kind of mosaic of personalities and stories. And if you come into it with an open mind, you're going to meet some really incredible people, and you all share that common thread, that common bond of having been in the military. But then beyond that, it's an awesome vehicle for helping you kind of figure out, ways to enjoy your time afterwards and just get excited about things. I think about Anna Maria Cardinale always comes to mind.
Yeah.
And
Cece. Yeah,
Cece.
I'll never forget how surprised you were when Cece, because she came and did the Great Lakes with us last year, and there's a couple videos I got to send you, because Sam, you were the one that came back to my apartment during Charleston Race Week, and you were like, "Have you Googled Cece's name? Hey, do you have any idea who Cece is?" I said, "I don't know. She's just a warrior, and she's a nun. She lives down there. She's this crazy background, and you found out all this information from her military background." But not only that, but she's like a world-renowned guitarist and classical guitarist, and Sam, and she sings opera. And so actually you would have loved it. She was teaching this past summer, she was teaching Keith's son to play guitar. So he got private guitar lessons from Cece all the way throughout the Great Lakes. And
Amazing.
There were we kind of came up with a band name. We have a band, we're going to put a band together, the PTSDs. And we got a couple hit songs that'll probably come out, but they were playing on the porch, and you could hear Cece in the whole neighborhood just singing away, hanging out in these houses. And it's it's just incredible, the different personalities we get through the program. But yeah, that was really cool.
Well, just from that one experience, there's still a handful of people that, I'll never forget. Kenny Moreland, who sent me a bag of freshly roasted coffee, such a kind heart. And he just, for us coming in, either we're coaching or volunteering or something like that, it's such a treat to get to meet all the awesome personalities that come through this program. So, it's selfish to say it, but I hope people come and do this so that when I get to go do an event with you guys, I get to meet more cool people. It's enriching. Yeah. It's awesome.
It's awesome. Well, we try and keep these at an hour because we could always keep going, but I really, really appreciate you taking the time. And can't thank you enough for taking the time to
No,
come
thank
out.
you
I
so
think
much.
there are probably some folks that could ask questions. And again, if anybody wants to send me email or send Corey an email, we can forward it to Sam and kind of get your contact so that we can communicate any questions that you guys might have for the people specifically. But yeah, if anybody has any other questions, I mean, we'll have to kind of cut the recording off here, and we're going to say goodbye. But after hours, you never know, he might be recording and keep the funny stuff together. But thank you, Sam. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, everybody.